I knew I was in trouble when Dolores from janitorial paused by my desk and whispered, "They're setting you up, girl. You've got that honest smell on you. Makes them nervous." Creston Financial hadn't always been this way. When I started in 2009, we were a scrappy team in a converted warehouse, led by a founder who preached fiduciary responsibility like scripture. We present reality and let clients make informed choices. But he retired in 2019, replaced by Liam Cross, a man in Italian leather who smelled like ambition and bourbon. If you're new here and enjoying these powerful stories, make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more. Let me know in the comments what part of today's story touched you most. Liam called himself a visionary. I called him a trust fund sociopath. He brought consultants, fired half the original team, and treated ethics like obsolete software. I stayed. 14 years of audits, late nights, and corporate chaos had taught me one thing. Numbers don't lie. People do. Systems do. Raw data doesn't. Then came the Q3 audit results. Flagged red, locked behind executive authorization. That wasn't protocol. It was a cover-up in motion. I checked the data and felt my stomach drop. Risk metrics that should have been flashing red were suddenly green. High-risk portfolios, including the $340 million Pemberton Fund for teachers and firefighters, were labeled stable. I'd flagged it 17 times. Warned Liam directly. His response: "Avery, you're too focused on the negatives. Trust the process." Now my memos were gone. The risk scores altered. And in my inbox, a calendar invite from Liam. Strategic alignment discussion. No agenda. Just a time, a room, and a CC to legal and an HR rep I didn't know. Obvious. But ignoring it would make me look guilty. So I accepted and started building insurance. That night, after everyone left, I accessed old system logs with credentials IT forgot to revoke. I pulled every version of the Pemberton assessment, captured discrepancies, downloaded audit trails. I encrypted it all, uploaded to a private cloud under my sister's name, and printed 3 physical copies. Hidden in my gym locker, a safety deposit box, and a hollowed-out dictionary at home. Paranoid? Maybe. But I'd seen 3 colleagues vanish after pushing back. I wouldn't be number 4. The meeting began precisely at 3 p.m. Conference Room 7. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a marble table worth more than my car, chairs designed to punish your spine. Liam sat at the head, flanked by Nadine, our chief legal officer, perpetually dressed for a funeral, and Philip from HR, whose dead eyes said he'd delivered bad news too many times to care. "Avery," Liam said, all charm. "Thanks for making time. We appreciate your dedication." I nodded, silent. Let him fill the silence. Nadine took over. "We're reviewing how preliminary risk findings are communicated. They can cause unnecessary alarm." "Unnecessary alarm?" I repeated flat. Liam smiled. "We're not shouting fire in a crowded theater when we're just burning popcorn." "The Pemberton account isn't popcorn," I said. "It's a structural fire." The smile died. "That's exactly the kind of language we need to recalibrate," Nadine said smoothly. "Your assessments create liability. External consultants disagree with your conclusions." "Which consultants?" "Not relevant," Liam waved. "We need you to align with the broader strategic vision." There was. "Stop telling the truth. Start reading from the script." I leaned forward. "You want me to falsify risk assessments?" Philip stiffened. Nadine's jaw tightened. Liam's mask slipped. "No one's asking you to falsify anything," she said, voice turning icy. "We're asking for professional discretion. Risk assessment is interpretive. My role," I said slowly, "is to identify systemic risk before it destroys client portfolios and triggers regulatory action. That's what you hired me to do." Liam leaned forward. "You're a valuable asset, Avery. But you're becoming a problem. We can't have your memos contradicting our disclosures. It damages credibility." "Whose credibility?" I asked. "Mine or yours?" Silence. Philip slid a paper across the table. "Performance Improvement Plan. Standard Procedure for Misalignment." I almost laughed. PIPs were execution chambers. "I'm not signing that." Nadine's voice hardened. "Then we escalate to formal disciplinary review. With recorded statements." "So you're threatening me?" "We're offering a path," Liam said coolly. Flexibility and cooperation, or consequences for being difficult. I stood. I need time to consider. Take the weekend, he said, smile returning. But Monday I need an answer. On record. I walked out. They thought loyalty and fear would make me fold. They forgot I'd spent 14 years learning how their system worked, and how to break it. That weekend I reviewed contracts and drafted my ethics complaint. A gun loaded but not yet fired. Monday the email arrived. Compliance statement recording mandatory attendance. Video documentation. Make it official. Make it binding. I forwarded it, then started drafting my own calendar invite. Conference room 4 was worse. Smaller, intimate. A camera on a tripod aimed at a single chair under harsh lights. Liam with his casual authority. Nadine poised like a court stenographer. Philip adjusting the lens like he was filming a hostage video. Avery, have a seat. This won't take long. I sat. The camera's red light blinked on. For the record, Nadine began, this is a voluntary compliance statement. She slid over a script. I read it silently, a confession disguised as an apology designed to bury me. I looked up. Liam wore his shark smile. Just one question, I said. What happens if I don't read it? Philip, immediate termination for insubordination. You lose severance. We contest unemployment. The trap was set. Read and become complicit or refuse and be destroyed. I set the paper down, faced the camera. For the record, I am reading this under duress. I've been told refusal means termination and loss of severance. I comply because I'm being threatened, not because I agree. Liam's smile vanished. Avery, that's not. Kept going. My risk assessments were accurate. The current data has been altered without my authorization. This statement is coercion, an effort to silence oversight. Philip lunged for the camera. I was faster. My phone came up, already recording. I'm documenting this too. For my protection. Now, read your script, or discuss why you're manufacturing evidence. The room exploded. Liam turned red. Nadine slammed her laptop shut. Philip froze. Turn it off. Liam hissed. Or security escorts you out. I stood, phone still live. Go ahead. Let them explain to FINRA why they filmed a coerced statement from their risk director. Nadine narrowed her eyes. You're bluffing. Try me. 5 seconds of silence. Liam nodded sharply. Philip killed the camera. I lowered my phone, but didn't stop recording. This meeting is over, Liam said. You're suspended. Leave now. Security will escort you out. I'll need that in writing, I said. Notice, reason, access restrictions. You'll get it. Good. And just so we're clear, I'm filing a formal complaint with FINRA today. Documentation's ready. Liam stepped into my space. File it and I'll bury you. Legal fees. Reputational ruin. Do you understand me? I didn't flinch. Are you threatening me, Liam? Because I'm still recording. His eyes flicked to my phone. He had no words. I walked past him, past them all. At the door I turned back. I gave 14 years to this company. I believed in what we did. What we were supposed to be. You've turned it into a fraud factory. And you're not going to use me as your fall guy. Then I left. Security did escort me out, 2 guys in ill-fitting uniforms who looked embarrassed to be there. They stood awkwardly while I cleaned out my desk, packing photos and files into a cardboard box someone had thoughtfully provided. The entire office watched in silence. Nobody met my eyes. Corporate exile is a spectator sport, and everyone knows better than to cheer for the losing side. But as I walked through the lobby for the last time, carrying my box of discarded career, Dolores from janitorial was emptying a trash bin near the elevator. She caught my eye and gave the smallest nod. No words. Just acknowledgement. Survivors recognize each other. I got in my car, set the box in the passenger seat and sat in the parking garage for 10 minutes, hands shaking, adrenaline finally catching up. Then I pulled out my laptop, connected to my phone's hotspot and opened my secure email. It was time to send the invitations. The calendar invite took me an hour to craft. Every word mattered. Every recipient had to be chosen with surgical precision. This wasn't just a meeting request. It was a detonation device disguised as administrative correspondence. Subject: Urgent compliance review, Creston Financial Solutions data integrity concerns. Date time: Wednesday, October 18, 2023, 9 a.m. Location: conference call, secure line, details to follow. Attendees: Amanda Berkshire, Independent Audit Director, Creston Financial Board of Directors. Raymond Cho, Senior FINRA Examiner, Regional Office. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Pension Fund Oversight Committee, Pemberton Consortium. Harold Whitman, External Legal Counsel retained by Creston Financial. Daniel Mercer, former CEO/founder, Creston Financial Solutions. Advisory capacity. Meeting description. This meeting addresses critical data integrity concerns identified in Q3 compliance audits for Creston Financial Solutions. Attached documentation includes original versus modified risk assessment reports, Pemberton account, system audit trails showing unauthorized data alterations, executive communications regarding risk assessment suppression, video documentation of coerced compliance statement attempt, formal ethics complaint, pre-filing draft for review, and review of evidence indicating systematic manipulation of client risk data. Discussion of potential regulatory violations and fiduciary breaches. Assessment of board oversight failures and executive accountability. Determination of appropriate remedial actions and external reporting requirements. Confidentiality notice. This communication contains privileged information regarding potential securities violations. Unauthorized disclosure or destruction of attached materials may constitute obstruction of regulatory oversight. Attachments. 7 files encrypted, password. Fiduciary Duty 2023. I read it 3 times, checking every detail. Then I attach the evidence packages I'd been compiling for months. The risk assessments, the system logs, the email chains, and most damningly, the video I'd recorded during that morning's ambush meeting. I'd edited it carefully, adding timestamps and contextual captions, making it crystal clear what they tried to do. The recipient list was the real weapon. Amanda Berkshire was the board's independent auditor, a retired federal prosecutor with zero tolerance for corporate malfeasance. Raymond Cho at FINRA had jurisdiction over exactly this type of violation. Dr. Vasquez represented the pension funds whose money Liam was gambling with. Harold Whitman was the external counsel Creston kept on retainer for regulatory defense, which meant he'd immediately recognize the legal exposure and start covering his own ass. And Daniel, the founder who still owned 12% of the company and sat on the advisory board? He'd be furious. Betrayed. Ready to burn it all down to protect the legacy he'd built. I didn't include Liam, Nadine, or anyone currently in executive leadership. Let them find out when their phones started ringing. Let them scramble. My cursor hovered over the send button. This was the point of no return. Once that email went out, I'd be officially at war with a company that had expensive lawyers, institutional power, and every incentive to destroy me. But I thought about those pension funds. About firefighters and teachers who'd trusted Creston to protect their retirements. About the next analyst who'd be pressured to cook the books and the one after that. About the slow rot of institutions that started when good people decided staying quiet was safer than speaking up. I clicked send. The confirmation message appeared. Your meeting invitation has been sent to 5 recipients. I closed my laptop and let out a breath I'd been holding for weeks. Maybe months. The kind of breath that releases years of swallowed frustration and compromised principles. My phone rang 30 seconds later. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. Different number. Again voicemail. By the time I pulled out of the parking garage, I had 14 missed calls and a text message from a number I didn't recognize. Ms. Langston, this is Amanda Berkshire. Received your meeting invitation. We need to talk immediately. Please call me at this number. This is time sensitive. I pulled into a coffee shop parking lot and called her back. Ms. Langston, she answered on the first ring. Her voice was sharp, controlled, carrying the weight of someone used to being obeyed. I've reviewed the attachments in your calendar invitation. Is this information verified? Every document is authentic, I said. I can provide original source files, system metadata, and witness statements if needed. Have you shared this with anyone else outside the recipients on that invite? No. Not yet. Pause. Not yet. Meaning you intend to. Meaning I'll do whatever is necessary to ensure this doesn't get buried, I said. I spent 14 years at Creston. I know how these things get handled. Quiet settlements. Sealed arbitration. Everyone signs NDAs and the truth disappears. That's not happening this time. Another pause longer. Then, Ms. Langston, I appreciate your commitment to transparency. But you need to understand the gravity of what you've initiated. If these allegations are accurate, and I'm not saying they aren't, we're looking at potential criminal charges, regulatory sanctions, and massive civil liability. This won't be resolved quietly, but it also can't be resolved publicly until we've established the facts and protected the innocent parties. The innocent parties are the clients whose money is being mismanaged while executives manipulate data to protect their bonuses, I said, hearing the edge in my own voice. I'm not interested in protecting Creston's reputation. I'm interested in stopping the fraud. Then we're aligned, Amanda said. But you need to let this process work. Don't go to the media. Don't post anything online. Let FINRA and the board conduct a proper investigation. Can you do that? I thought about it. Weighed the satisfaction of public exposure against the strategic advantage of letting the system work. Sometimes the biggest explosions happen underground, out of sight, where the damage is structural and permanent. I can do that, I said. For now. But if this gets swept under the rug, if I see any indication that people are being protected instead of held accountable, all of this goes public. And I mean everything. Understood, Amanda said. The meeting is confirmed for Wednesday morning. Be ready to walk us through every document in detail. And Ms. Langston? Thank you. What you've done takes courage. It shouldn't, but it does. She hung up. I sat in my car watching people come and go from the coffee shop. Normal people having normal days. Unaware that somewhere in the city a financial institution was starting to collapse from the inside out. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unlisted number. We need to talk. This doesn't have to be hostile. There's still time to work something out. Liam. I deleted it without responding. There was nothing to work out. No compromise to be struck. He'd shown me exactly who he was, and I'd responded by showing him what happens when you underestimate someone who's been taking notes for 14 years. Another text, different number. Avery, it's Daniel. Got your meeting invite. I'm in Montana but flying back tonight. We should talk before Wednesday. I had no idea any of this was happening. Please call me. That one I saved. Daniel wasn't the enemy. He was collateral damage, a founder watching his legacy get corrupted by people who valued profit over principle. His call could wait until tomorrow. Tonight I needed to prepare for the war that was about to consume everything. I drove home, ordered takeout I didn't eat, and spent the evening organizing evidence into presentation format. Timeline documents. Side-by-side comparisons. Financial projections showing where the Pemberton account was actually headed versus where Liam claimed it was going. I built the case the way prosecutors build RICO indictments. Methodically, thoroughly, leaving no room for interpretation. Around midnight my phone rang. Number I didn't recognize. I answered anyway. Ms. Langston. Male voice, professional, cautious. This is Raymond Cho from FINRA. I apologize for calling so late, but I wanted to reach you before business hours tomorrow. We've initiated a preliminary review based on your complaint. I need to ask you some questions about your current employment status and whether you've experienced any retaliation. I was suspended this morning, I said. Escorted out of the building after refusing to read a coerced statement on camera that would have contradicted my risk assessments. Do you have documentation of this? I have video, audio recording, written communications, time-stamped evidence of every interaction. Silence on the line. Then, Ms. Langston, I'm going to be direct with you. What you've uncovered appears to be a significant compliance failure with potential criminal dimensions. The meeting you've scheduled for Wednesday is highly irregular from a procedural standpoint, but given the circumstances, it may be the fastest way to establish facts and protect client assets. I'm going to attend. So will 2 other examiners from my office. We're going to need full access to Creston's servers and records. Can you help us understand the architecture of their data systems? I can, I said. I helped build them. Another pause. Then we have a lot to discuss before Wednesday. I'll send you a secure communication link. Please don't share any of this information outside the recipients you've already contacted. And Ms. Langston? Watch your back. People have done worse things for less money than what's at stake here. He disconnected. I sat in the darkness of my living room, laptop screen casting blue light across the walls, and felt the full weight of what I'd set in motion finally settle over me. This wasn't just whistleblowing. It was demolition. And somewhere across the city, in a corner office with a view of the skyline, Liam Cross was realizing he'd underestimated the wrong person. My phone buzzed one more time. Text from a number I didn't recognize. They're going to come after you hard. Document everything. Trust no one. D. Dolores. Even the janitor knew what came next. I replied, already ahead of them. Thanks for the warning. Her response came back immediately. Good. Been cleaning up messes here for 20 years. About time someone made them clean up their own. I smiled despite everything. Corporate revolutions start in strange places. Sometimes with a suspended risk analyst. Sometimes with a janitor who sees more than people think she does. Wednesday morning arrived with the inevitability of a court date. I woke up at 5 a.m., couldn't go back to sleep, spent 2 hours reviewing my evidence presentation one final time. Dressed in the same charcoal suit I'd worn on Monday, armor for credibility. No jewelry except my watch. Hair severe and controlled. I looked like someone whose testimony could end careers. The meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. conference call format to accommodate Daniel calling in from Montana and the FINRA examiners attending from their regional office. I'd set up in my apartment's tiny home office, laptop connected to external monitors, documents organized in physical binders as backup in case technology decided to betray me at a critical moment. At 8:45 a.m. my phone rang. Amanda Berkshire. Ms. Langston, before we begin, I need to inform you that Creston's executive team has requested to participate in this meeting. They're claiming it's a personnel matter and that excluding them violates their due process rights. My jaw tightened. This isn't about personnel. It's about securities fraud and data manipulation. If they want due process, they can hire lawyers and respond to FINRA's investigation. I agree, Amanda said. But I wanted you to know they're going to try to take control of the narrative. They've already sent a preemptive memo to the board characterizing you as a disgruntled employee making false accusations. We're not giving them access to this call, but be prepared for them to issue public statements or take legal action. Let them, I said. Everything I've documented is verifiable. They can issue all the statements they want. Facts don't care about PR spin. Good. We're starting in 10 minutes. Be ready. I hung up and pulled up the secure conference line. The waiting room showed 4 participants already connected. At exactly 9 a.m. Amanda's voice came through crystal clear. Good morning, everyone. This is an emergency compliance review convened by the Independent Audit Committee of Creston Financial Solutions Board of Directors. Participants include myself, Amanda Berkshire, serving as Independent Audit Director, Raymond Cho and 2 colleagues from FINRA, Dr. Elena Vasquez representing the Pemberton Pension Fund Consortium, Harold Whitman, External Legal Counsel, and Daniel Mercer, former CEO and current advisory board member. Also present is Avery Langston, former Senior Director of Risk Assessment at Creston Financial, who has raised the compliance concerns we're here to address. I noticed she said former director. Apparently my suspension had already been upgraded to termination. Good. Made the retaliation claim even cleaner. Amanda continued. Ms. Langston, please walk us through your findings, starting with the timeline of events that led to this meeting. I took a breath and began. Methodically. Chronologically. Facts only, no emotion, just the cold recitation of evidence. I shared my screen, displayed the original risk assessments side by side with the altered versions. Showed the system logs proving when and by whom the changes were made. Played excerpts from the recorded meeting where they tried to force me to read their scripted confession. 15 minutes in, Raymond Cho from FINRA interrupted. Ms. Langston, you're saying these alterations were made directly in the compliance database? Not just in draft reports or internal communications. Correct, I said. The production database that feeds regulatory reports and client disclosures. The changes were pushed to live systems and would have been included in quarterly filings to FINRA and the SEC. Silence on the line. Heavy loaded silence. Dr. Vasquez spoke up, her voice tight with controlled fury. Are you telling me that the risk reports we received about the Pemberton account, The reports we used to make investment decisions for pension beneficiaries were fabricated? Not fabricated, I clarified. Altered. The underlying data is real. But the risk scores were artificially inflated to hide exposure levels that would have triggered mandatory reviews and potential asset reallocation. How much exposure are we talking about? She asked. I pulled up a projection model. Based on current market conditions and the derivative positions in the portfolio, the Pemberton account faces potential losses between $78 million and $120 million over the next 18 months if current positions aren't restructured. The modified risk reports showed maximum exposure of $12 million. Someone on the FINRA side swore under their breath. Dr. Vasquez said nothing for a long moment, then, those are teachers' retirements. Firefighters who worked 30 years. You're telling me Creston knowingly exposed them to catastrophic losses and then hid the evidence? That's exactly what I'm telling you, I said. And when I refused to participate in the cover-up, they tried to coerce me into making a recorded statement that would have discredited my assessments and protected the executives responsible. Daniel's voice crackled through the line, rough with emotion. Avery, it's Daniel. I need to ask you directly. Did Liam Cross personally direct these alterations? I pulled up another document. I have email correspondence from Liam to the IT systems administrator requesting optimization of risk visibility metrics. That request was sent 3 days before the alterations appeared in the database. I also have Slack messages between Liam and Nadine Fletcher, the chief legal officer, discussing how to manage the narrative around Pemberton exposure and reduce noise from risk assessment. That's not a smoking gun, Harold Whitman interjected, his lawyer instincts kicking in. That's corporate executives discussing communication strategy. Read the full context, I said, sharing the complete message thread. They're not discussing how to communicate risk. They're discussing how to hide it. Nadine specifically wrote, "We can't have another quarter of red flags in the compliance dashboard. Board is already asking questions. Can you handle the technical side?" Liam responded, "Already on it. Numbers will be clean by Friday." Silence again. Longer this time. Raymond Cho cleared his throat. "Ms. Langston, I'm going to need you to preserve every piece of evidence you have and prepare to provide formal testimony. What you've described constitutes securities fraud under Section 10B of the Securities Exchange Act, potential wire fraud, and deliberate obstruction of regulatory oversight. This is a criminal matter." Harold Whitman spoke quickly. For the record, as external counsel to Creston Financial, I was not aware of any of these allegations prior to this meeting. My firm will be conducting an immediate internal investigation and will cooperate fully with FINRA and any federal inquiries. Translation: the lawyers were jumping ship before it sank. Amanda took control again. "Daniel, as advisory board member and major shareholder, what's your position on next steps?" Daniel didn't hesitate. "Emergency board meeting. Today if possible. Liam Cross needs to be suspended immediately pending investigation. Same with Nadine and anyone else who touched those numbers. I want an independent forensic audit of every account under management, and I want the findings delivered to FINRA and the SEC without filtration. I built this company on trust. If that trust has been violated, I want everyone responsible held accountable, regardless of title or tenure." "Agreed," Amanda said. "I'm convening an emergency board session for 2 p.m. today. FINRA, will you have representatives available?" "We'll be there," Raymond confirmed. "And we're issuing a preservation order for all Creston systems effective immediately. Nothing gets deleted, modified, or moved. We'll have forensic teams on site by close of business." Dr. Vasquez spoke up. "What about the pension funds? We need to know if we should be pulling assets immediately or if that would trigger worse losses." "That's a question for the forensic audit," Amanda said. "But my preliminary recommendation would be to freeze any new transactions and begin a controlled restructuring of high-risk positions. We need to stop the bleeding without causing panic that makes it worse." "I'll convene an emergency meeting with the consortium," Dr. Vasquez said. "But I want daily updates. And Ms. Langston? Thank you. You may have just saved a lot of people from losing everything." The meeting continued for another 90 minutes, drilling into technical details, establishing timelines, coordinating investigation protocols. By the time we finally disconnected, my head was pounding and my coffee had gone cold, but something fundamental had shifted. The machine I'd been fighting alone was now turning its gears toward accountability. My phone rang immediately after the call ended. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. Avery Langston? Female voice, clipped and professional. Speaking. This is Catherine Park from the Securities and Exchange Commission Enforcement Division. I understand you've been in contact with FINRA regarding potential violations at Creston Financial Solutions. We'd like to schedule a formal interview at your earliest convenience. This would be a voluntary interview at this stage, though you're welcome to have counsel present. Not just regulatory oversight anymore. Federal enforcement. I can make myself available, I said. And yes, I'll be bringing counsel. Excellent. My office will send you a formal request with available dates. In the meantime, Ms. Langston, I want to emphasize the importance of document preservation and confidentiality. Do not discuss the details of your allegations with anyone outside official channels. Do not post anything on social media. Do not speak to the press. Is that understood? Understood. Good. We'll be in touch. She hung up. I sat back in my chair, staring at the ceiling, trying to process the velocity of what was happening. Less than 72 hours ago, I'd been sitting in a conference room being filmed like a hostage. Now I had FINRA investigating, the SEC preparing enforcement action, and the board moving to suspend executives. One calendar invitation. That's all it took. One strategically crafted email with the right recipients and the right evidence. My phone buzzed. Text message from a number I didn't recognize. You've made a serious mistake. This won't end the way you think it will. People who go to war with institutions usually lose. Last chance to reconsider your position. Alex. Texting threats from his personal phone like an amateur. I screenshotted the message, forwarded it to Raymond Cho with a note. Exhibit 23. Witness intimidation. His response came back within minutes. Documented. Forward any additional communications directly to this number. Do not engage. I blocked Liam's number and went to make fresh coffee. My hands were steady now. The fear that had been coiled in my chest for weeks had transformed into something colder and more useful. Clarity. Purpose. Around 1 p.m. my phone rang again. Daniel. Avery, he said when I answered. I'm at the airport. Heading back into the city for the board meeting. I wanted to call you personally before things get officially crazy. Too late for that, I said. Things are already officially crazy. Fair point. He paused. I need to apologize to you. I retired and handed my company over to people I thought I'd vetted properly. I trusted the board to maintain oversight. I believed the culture we'd built would survive leadership transition. I was wrong. And you paid the price for my negligence. Daniel, you're not responsible for what Liam did. I'm responsible for leaving and not staying vigilant, he said. I'm responsible for not recognizing the warning signs when they started appearing in quarterly reports. And I'm responsible for not creating better protections for people like you who tried to do the right thing. I didn't know what to say to that. Apologies from powerful men were rare enough that I'd never developed a script for accepting them. The board meeting today, Daniel continued, is going to be contentious. Liam has allies. People who benefited from the inflated numbers, who got bonuses tied to performance metrics that were fabricated. They're going to fight to protect him, which means fighting to discredit you. I need you to be prepared for that. I'm prepared, I said. I've been prepared since the day I started documenting his requests. Good. Because here's what's going to happen. They're going to argue you're bitter about being suspended, that you fabricated evidence out of revenge, that you're technically incompetent and misinterpreted the data. They'll say you have a history of being difficult, of not being a team player, of exaggerating problems for attention. They'll try to make this about your character instead of their crimes. Let them try, I said. Every document is authenticated. Every timestamp is verifiable. Every allegation is supported by evidence that exists in their own systems. They can attack my character all they want. The numbers don't care. Daniel laughed, short and bitter. You sound like me 20 years ago. Before I got tired and decided building motorcycles was easier than fighting corruption. Don't let them wear you down, Avery. What you're doing matters. Even if it feels like you're screaming into a void sometimes. It doesn't feel like screaming anymore, I said. It feels like watching the walls come down. Good. Keep that feeling. You're going to need it. The emergency board meeting happened without me. I wasn't invited, which was probably strategic. Let them fight it out without the whistleblower in the room to remind them why they were there. But I got the aftermath in a phone call from Amanda at 6:47 p.m. Liam Cross has been placed on immediate administrative leave, she said without preamble. Nadine Fletcher resigned effective immediately. The board voted 7-2 to authorize full cooperation with FINRA and SEC investigations. We're bringing in an interim CO, someone with regulatory experience and no prior connection to Creston. Who were the 2 votes against? I asked. Board members who serve on the compensation committee, Amanda said dryly. Both of them approved the bonus structure tied to the falsified metrics. Both of them are now under investigation themselves. What about my employment status? You're being offered immediate reinstatement with back pay, full benefits restoration, and a formal apology from the board. They're also offering a settlement that includes compensation for emotional distress and reputational harm. I almost laughed. They're trying to buy my silence. They're trying to avoid a wrongful termination lawsuit on top of everything else, Amanda corrected. But Avery, between you and me? Take the reinstatement. Take the apology. But don't take the settlement money if it comes with an NDA. You need to be free to testify without restrictions. I wasn't planning to take it anyway, I said. This isn't about money. It never was. I know. That's why I'm telling you to be smart about it. The company is going to survive this. Restructured, humiliated, under regulatory microscope, but it'll survive. The question is whether you want to be part of rebuilding it or whether you want to walk away. I thought about that. 14 years. My entire adult professional life poured into an institution that had tried to destroy me when I refused to become complicit in its corruption. Did I want to go back? I don't know yet, I said honestly. Right now I just want to make sure this doesn't get buried. That people actually face consequences. They will, Amanda said. The SEC doesn't open enforcement investigations for nothing. And FINRA is treating this as a priority case. Liam Cross is going to have a very bad year. Maybe several of them. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment's dim living room and let the exhaustion finally catch up. My phone had been ringing constantly for hours. Reporters somehow getting my number. Colleagues from Creston sending cautious messages of support or silent judgment. Even a few headhunters, vultures circling someone whose notoriety might be marketable. I ignored all of it. Ordered Thai food I barely tasted. Opened a bottle of wine and poured a glass I didn't drink. Just sat there staring at nothing, feeling the adrenaline drain away and leave behind something hollow and fragile. Around 10 p.m. my phone buzzed. Text from Dolores. Saw the news about Liam. Whole office is buzzing. He did good, girl. Real good. Don't let them tell you different. I smiled despite everything. Replied, thanks, Dolores. Couldn't have done it without your warning. Her response, janitors see everything. Remember that. And hey, if you come back, I'll make sure your desk is extra clean. You earned it. The following weeks blurred together into a succession of interviews, depositions and document reviews. The SEC sent 2 investigators who spent 3 days combing through my evidence with the intensity of archaeologists uncovering a mass grave. FINRA's forensic audit team found additional irregularities beyond what I'd documented. Apparently, the Pemberton account wasn't the only one that had been manipulated. 7 other major portfolios showed signs of altered risk assessments, all during quarters when executive bonuses were calculated. The total exposure was staggering. Over $800 million in client assets had been misrepresented in compliance filings. If even half of those positions collapsed, the losses would trigger insurance claims, regulatory sanctions, and civil litigation that could take years to resolve. Liam hired a crisis management firm and expensive defense attorneys. They issued carefully worded statements about good faith business disagreements and standard industry practices being mischaracterized by a disgruntled former employee. They tried to paint me as unstable, vindictive, someone with a history of conflicts with management. It didn't work. Too much evidence. Too many witnesses. Even some of Liam's own allies started cooperating with investigators once they realized they could face criminal charges themselves. The media caught wind of it inevitably. Financial press first, then broader coverage. Former risk director exposes fraud at Creston Financial. Whistleblower's calendar invite triggers SEC investigation. Headlines that reduced months of terror and isolation into clickbait. Reporters camped outside my apartment. I stopped answering my door. Daniel called me weekly, checking in, offering support that felt genuine rather than strategic. "This is going to get worse before it gets better," he warned during one call. "The closer we get to criminal charges, the more desperate Liam's going to become. Watch yourself." He was right. 3 weeks after the initial investigation began, someone leaked my personnel file to a financial blog. Selectively edited performance reviews making me look difficult and insubordinate. Anonymous quotes from former colleagues, claiming I'd always been paranoid and hostile to leadership. It stung. Not because I believed it, but because I recognized the people behind it. Colleagues I'd worked alongside for years. People who were protecting their own positions by sacrificing mine. But the investigative machinery kept grinding forward, indifferent to PR spin. On November 15th, the SEC filed formal charges. Securities fraud. Making false statements to investors. Obstruction of regulatory oversight. Named defendants: Liam Cross, Nadine Fletcher, and 2 members of the IT team who'd executed the database alterations. Creston Financial Solutions itself was charged with systemic compliance failures and agreed to a consent decree. $47 million in penalties, 3 years of enhanced regulatory monitoring and mandatory restructuring of risk assessment protocols. The Pemberton Pension Fund filed a civil lawsuit seeking $200 million in damages. 6 other client groups followed with their own suits. Liam's lawyers tried to negotiate a settlement. The SEC refused. This was going to trial. I was notified I'd be called as a key witness. The trial was scheduled for March 2024. In the meantime, Creston offered me the reinstatement package again. Director-level position, reporting directly to the new interim CEO, mandate to rebuild the risk assessment department with full autonomy and budget authority. It was everything I'd wanted 3 months ago before everything burned down. I turned it down. "Why?" Amanda asked when I told her my decision. We'd met for coffee ostensibly to discuss trial preparation, but really just to talk human to human for the first time in weeks. "Because I don't want to rebuild their system," I said. "I want to build something better. Somewhere that doesn't need a whistleblower to force accountability." She nodded slowly. "You thinking about starting your own firm?" "Maybe. Or consulting for companies that actually want to get it right before regulators force them to. I've got experience now." I smiled without humor. "Apparently I'm very good at finding fraud." "You'd be in demand," Amanda agreed. "Though you should know, testifying as an expert witness or consultant can be complicated if you're seen as having a financial interest in cases." "I'm aware. I've already talked to 3 different lawyers about potential conflicts. I'm building this carefully. Ethically." "Good." She studied me over her coffee. "You've changed. Since that first meeting. You seem harder. Colder." "I'm tired," I said honestly. "Tired of fighting systems designed to protect powerful people from consequences. Tired of being gaslit about what I saw with my own eyes. Tired of watching people choose comfort over courage." "That's not cold," Amanda said quietly. "That's clarity. Don't lose it. The world needs more people like you." The trial started on March 4, 2024. Federal courthouse downtown, media circus outside, protesters demanding accountability mixed with financial industry defenders claiming regulatory overreach. I testified for 2 days, walking the jury through every document, every email, every moment of being pressured to falsify data. Liam's attorneys tried to rattle me. Suggested I'd misunderstood technical processes. Implied I had personal animosity toward their client. Asked hostile questions designed to make me seem vindictive rather than principled. I stayed calm. Answered every question with facts. Let the evidence speak. On the 3rd day they played the video. The one from conference room 4 where they tried to force me to read their script. The courtroom went silent watching it. Watching me state on camera that I was being coerced. Watching Liam threaten me. Watching the desperation of people trying to manufacture a cover-up in real time. When it finished, the prosecutor asked me one question. "Ms. Langston, why did you record that meeting?" Because I knew they were building a narrative to destroy my credibility, I said. And I knew the truth needed documentation, not just my word against theirs. I'd spent 14 years learning how their system worked. I wasn't going to let them use it against me. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Found Liam Cross guilty on all counts. Nadine Fletcher guilty on 4 of 6 counts. The IT team members took plea deals in exchange for testimony. Sentencing came 2 months later. Liam got 8 years federal prison. Nadine got 4. Both faced millions in fines and were barred from working in the financial industry permanently. The civil cases settled quietly after the criminal convictions. Creston's insurance covered most of the damages. The company survived barely as a shadow of what it had been. Daniel came out of retirement temporarily to help stabilize things, then handed control to new leadership he actually vetted this time. Me. I did exactly what I told Amanda I'd do. Started a consulting firm specializing in compliance architecture and whistleblower protection systems. Helped companies build frameworks that encouraged internal reporting before things escalated to regulatory disasters. Taught risk assessment teams how to document concerns properly. Testified as an expert witness in 3 other securities fraud cases. The work was good. Meaningful. Better than what I'd been doing before, because now I was helping prevent the rot instead of just identifying it after it had already spread. But late at night sometimes I still thought about that moment in conference room 4. The camera pointed at me. The script in my hands. The choice between compliance and consequence. I thought about every person who'd been in similar rooms, faced similar choices and chosen silence because it seemed safer. Because the cost of speaking up felt too high. I thought about Dolores still mopping floors and seeing everything. And I thought about those teachers and firefighters whose retirements I'd helped protect. People I'd never meet who never knew how close they came to losing everything. One calendar invitation. That's what it took to start dismantling a fraud. But it took 14 years of learning the system, months of careful documentation, and the willingness to lose everything to save something worth more than my career. People ask me sometimes if it was worth it. If I'd do it again knowing the cost. I tell them the truth, I didn't have a choice. Not really. Because once you see the corruption clearly, once you understand exactly how the machine breaks people while protecting the powerful, you can't unsee it. You can't unknow it. You can only decide who you're going to be when the camera's rolling. I chose to be someone who kept receipts,